Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by TheLines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. We got 4 games here in the NBA on Tuesday night. Bunch of back-to-backs, but we've got some best bets up already in this episode, going through the play of props that we have as well, and bringing both of those to you each and every weekday. So make sure to subscribe to that page and continue to follow along with us. Pretty good night last night, Nate, with a lot more to choose from, I will say, but we've got some fun games at least tonight in this 4-gamer. So let's get right into your first play of prop.
Yeah, White Dante DiVincenzo gives us 11.5 points. You might find it at 12.5 at some books, but minus 105, good number here. And interested in the threes, which is about the same at 2.5 threes, but he's not like just a 3-point shooter, as we know. I mean, that's what he was forced into doing with the Knicks, but he can get to the basket. I mean, he basically made his hay early in the career as just an outstanding backdoor cutter, right? And I think this Dallas team on a back-to-back could get blown out here. You could see Dante being kind of the nail in the coffin or playing more in the fourth quarter because he's coming off the bench in a blowout, or he could be playing more in a competitive game because Mike Conley can't really survive on defense against his backcourt, right? I mean, Kyrie or Luka hunting him, it was kind of a disaster down the stretch of that playoff series. He had a defensive rating 121 or higher in 3 of the last 4 in that one. So Dante, who's starting to settle in in his 3rd game with Minnesota after, really struggling from deep. Clearly they were just like, yo, just keep letting it fly, because he goes 4 for 11 from 3 on Saturday against Toronto and had a nice 104 defensive rating in that game. I think there's still room for positive regression on the threes. He's taken 8.3 per game, only shooting 28%. And what we saw with the Knicks last year was he can get really hot. In fact, against Dallas, he's been particularly high. His last 4, including 2 as a role player with Golden State, 20 points per game, 51% from 3, hitting nearly 5 threes per game, skewed by the 36-point outing, 7 for 12 in his last one with the Knicks. But yeah, also driving to the game, 3rd most drives per game on the team. And Conley is 0 for 5 shooting on drives, producing 0 points per paint touch, and DiVincenzo 2 points per paint touch. So I think they'll give him more minutes here in a competitive game, and he could play more in a blowout.
Yeah, no qualms with anything White Dante, because he's just so important. That's why we've been trying to get ahead of betting on him, and his number has not risen. I think, to your point, 14.5 or so should probably be the number in the near future. I think that'll probably be what we see. I predicted that he's above 30 minutes on average per game by December. Essentially, I was like, I don't know how you even last that long with that little of 3-point shooting. It's just not. It's not the 90s, man. It's not going to work that way. So you have to have him out there. Jaden McDaniels, don't trust him nearly as much as a 3-point shooter. Obviously, he was good in the corner at times, but super sporadic. And to your point, Dante is more than this. I think he'll also be looking at 3.5, 4.5 assists as well. But more importantly for right now, his directive is shoot the damn ball as often as you need to, and we need you to. So I like him continuously at 11.5 points until this thing gets bumped up. But I'm going to fade Jonathan Kuminga for my first pick. Now, I know what's going on here with Steph being out. It's 25.5 points in rebounds. I took the under at minus 120. There's a couple of things. Jonathan Kuminga is more productive, let's say, with Steph off the floor, at least in his output, but not in the rebounding, just in his points. He averaged 3 more points per game without Steph last year. He averaged 1 more minute per game. Granted, they had other guys out there, but guess what? They have more other guys out there this year. Nobody plays 30 minutes unless you are Wardell, Steph, and Curry. It's just what Steve Kerr's prerogative is at this point, and I think it's smart. I was saying that in best bets as well. I don't like this spot for them, but which is also why I don't like Jonathan Kuminga, but I like what they're doing, and what they're doing has impacted Kuminga the most. And this is the other thing that hasn't been taken into consideration. Kuminga's minutes are low. I mean, he's played 20 minutes. He's played 12 minutes in a game this season. And this is a dude who's fighting for a contract, who assumes that he deserves close to a max deal. That's what's going on behind the scenes in Golden State. And I'm just doing simple math here. You have a guy who's frustrated he's not getting paid because he values himself higher than the team. And you have that same guy not getting the minutes he clearly thinks he deserves because he thinks he deserves the money. There's no way that he's a happy camper. There's no way that the vibes are high in Jonathan Kuminga camp right now. So I'm going to continue to bank on nobody playing that many minutes through 3 games. He's at 20 minutes a game, 8 points, 8 field goal attempts. 3 rebounds on 5 rebound chances per game. And like I said, he is a little bit more involved on the wing and on the outside without Steph. That has led to a full rebound fewer per game without Stephen Curry in the lineup for him. Andrew Wiggins is questionable. I hate that. That's the thing that really gives me pause more than anything, because if Andrew Wiggins wasn't questionable, I'd probably fade Draymond and Jonathan Kuminga and take under like 21.5 PRA for Draymond, because this is my favorite value point of things like this is everyone assumes Draymond's just better without Steph. Steph is the key that unlocks Draymond. We've talked about that on this show. I just think the public perception is, oh, this guy's out, so there's going to be a ton of shots. Draymond ain't taking those shots. And guess what? Kuminga ain't taking those shots either. Those aren't the same shots that Steph is taking. So I don't think there's heavy correlation between these guys bumping up their stats. If anything, they go down without Steph.
Yeah. No, yeah, the Wiggins being doubtful thing is a problem. I think if you see him officially ruled out, you got to pivot off this. And
Yeah.
I would say Pajemski overs or Buddy Hield. I mean, I just think this
Hield is
Warriors
high.
machine.
Would you
Yeah.
take Buddy at 17.5 points?
Yeah, I mean, probably not. I would like Pajemski. I think
Yeah.
because I'm like, how is Kuminga gonna get going? He has to be set up, and Pajemski's got to have to run this offense for the most
Right.
part. Draymond, your point though, like he's basically on a minutes limit early. He's getting the Travis Kelce treatment. Like we'll just save you for the second half.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think he's necessarily blowing up. So I mean, all that adds up to me. Like maybe this is the spot for Kuminga to start showing something. But yeah, he's dependent on other guys. Like his bag is not very deep. So
Right.
I hear what you're saying.
And I just want to say 2 words: Herb Jones. That's who's going to get the Kuminga's going to get the Herb Jones treatment in this one. So
yeah, pretty much the only good defender on the Pelicans right now. So
yeah, true.
still like the over in that game,
Yeah.
despite the injuries. And got a high total out in Utah, and I'll take Kevin Huerter over 9.5 points. You can get that plus money at Bet Rivers. You can get it close to even odds everywhere else. Look, I mean, he's plus 125 to hit 3 threes, and he's hit 4 in consecutive games. He only had 1 right or 0 against Minnesota, but that's a different story. I mean, with these 3 prolific scorers out there now, or creators in Sabonis's case, like he's going to get a ton of quality looks, right? And so far, shooting 68% true shooting, 76% of his attempts coming from 3, and dependent on assists to a degree, which 95% of his threes were assisted last year. We're at 88% so far. Well, that's great against Utah, maybe the worst defense in the league, at least so far, allowing the most 3-point attempts and most assists. So they're coming home where their offense is better. So great. We're in a more competitive environment. They're playing at the 7th fastest pace this year, but they're not playing a lick of defense, and they just lost Taylor Hendricks for the year as well. Last year, they allowed 40% from the opponents from 3. So Huerter, his last 6 versus Utah, averaging 20, hitting 55% from the floor, 44% from 3, hitting 3.2 threes per game. So, I mean, everything looks at that. I mean, the splits against the team in particular is really the last thing I looked at here. It was more just like, veterans on a back-to-back, like DeRozan. Is he going to shoot as much? Is this going to be competitive? Who's going to step up? And I think that Huerter's going to have a lot of opportunities to just knock down shots or attack the closeout and get a few points inside the arc.
Yeah, I've been trying to see if he was going to be the odd man out in that starting lineup, and he's still getting the 3-point looks. This is a good team to take him against. Obviously, yeah, this is going to end as one of the worst defenses in the league. I would imagine they're really not honing in on anything to do with that. But they are playing a lot more Walker Kessler, so I'm going to go in that route. I'm going to take him over 9.5 boards for plus money, plus 105 there on FanDuel. And I mean, this probably is more of like a half a unit to a 3/4 unit play for me, but with such little offerings, I think Walker Kessler boards tonight is a good look, because there's a little, at least in the early going, and somewhat last year, there's correlation between them playing bigger teams and Walker Kessler getting a few more minutes. Only team he didn't play 30 minutes against this season is Golden State, who doesn't really have, right, like TJD was a problem for him in that game because he's quick and fleet of foot and uses athleticism more than he does try to just bang bodies down low. And Walker Kessler was not the player for that. Well, he is the player for Sabonis. He's going to probably be looking, once again, that's what my projection is a floor of about 28 minutes for Walker Kessler tonight, as he's going to continue to be important for that very reason. And in the 2 games that he's played, 30 minutes so far, has cleared this line and is looking at about 20 rebound chances per game. In the 20 minutes, when he loses 10 minutes of play, those rebound chances drop down to about 12. He still had 9 boards in that time frame, but I think this is something clearly that's being prioritized with him as well. Is when you play these these teams that are bigger, then he gets more minutes. If you look at last year, you can do a little bit of filtering on some searches and find that if he plays against a team that is in the top half of the league in opponent rebounds allowed, he gets more minutes. He averaged 5 more minutes per game than his season average. When you look at the 15, 16 games, it was 16 games against the teams that were in the top 10 in terms of opponent rebounds. So there is, like I said, the correlation there between those good big teams and him needing to be in there. And that's what I would definitely consider the Kings at this point. Also considered Keegan Murray rebounds. That's a sneaky good look, kind of like Rui, these like smaller fours that are getting a lot of boards right now, like Rui Hachimura was another good example. I think Keegan Murray is going to continue to be effective in other ways besides needing to shoot for this team. That's his directive. But I went with Kessler because you get a little bit of plus money there for him too.
Yeah, he's got to be out there to bang with Sabonis. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I do expect the Jazz to have some success here as they come back home, right? I mean, they did score 124 in their home opener. So I was looking at their team total, 114.5, and maybe Markkanen to get his points going against Kings team that's also on a back-to-back and also not great defensively. So
Yep.
yeah, should be a good pace to this one, and that leads you to rebounds for their center.
Yep, big time. So that's all the time we have for you, though, and Play Up Props. Also have those best bets up, so make sure to subscribe and continue to follow along all season with us. And until we see you next, happy betting.